Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you've been living life on autopilot. Not unhappy exactly, but not alive either. You go through your routine, do what's expected, hit deadlines, meet responsibilities, and yet you can't shake the feeling that you're meant for something more. That's the spark John R. Miles calls the beginning of a passion-struck life. And his book, Passion Struck, 12 Powerful Principles to Unlock Your Purpose and Ignite Your Most Intentional Life, is basically a guide to reigniting that spark before it burns out completely. What makes this book different from the dozens of Find Your Purpose guides out there is its mix of neuroscience, psychology, and deeply human storytelling. Miles isn't just talking about motivation. He's teaching how to build a system for living intentionally, even when life feels chaotic. And he's not doing it alone. His work draws from conversations with Navy SEALs, psychologists, CEOs, and thought leaders who've all hit that same question. What am I really doing with my life? So today, let's break down how Passion Struck answers it, and the 12 principles that could completely change how you live. The first thing Miles makes clear is this: passion isn't something you find, it's something you build. That's why his very first principle is, make the choice to live intentionally. Most of us wait for clarity to arrive before we act. We think once we have the perfect plan, we'll finally move. But Miles flips it. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes because of it. He shares stories of people who didn't have all the answers but started anyway. Entrepreneurs, athletes, even soldiers who built confidence by stepping into discomfort. Because action, he says, creates feedback. And feedback is how we discover what we're truly meant to do. It's a reminder that purpose isn't a lightning bolt. It's a compass you build one step at a time. Once you make that choice, the next step is to define your passion-struck identity. That means asking, who am I becoming? Not what am I doing? Miles introduces what he calls the 5 core discoveries: identity, purpose, values, meaning, and intentionality. They sound simple, but he shows how often we build lives around what other people expect, not what actually aligns with who we are. He shares a conversation with astronaut Chris Cassidy, who described his NASA journey not as chasing a dream, but as living out his values: discipline, service, and curiosity. Cassidy didn't wake up thinking, astronaut. He woke up thinking, how can I live in line with who I want to be? That shift, from outcome to identity, is one of the book's most powerful ideas. Then comes one of the hardest truths. To live intentionally, you have to break free from the autopilot trap. Miles calls this escaping the gravitational pull of average. He uses the metaphor of orbit. When you're stuck in routines, the comfort zone acts like gravity, keeping you circling the same patterns. To escape, you need energy, in this case, intentional discomfort. He points to research on neuroplasticity. Your brain only rewires itself when challenged, so avoiding discomfort actually locks you into old patterns. But by deliberately doing things that stretch your limits, whether that's public speaking, setting boundaries, or trying a new skill, you literally rewire your brain for growth. It's not about hustling harder, it's about choosing growth over comfort, one small risk at a time. And now, the next few principles dive into how to sustain that growth, because passion fades fast when life gets hard. One of the most practical sections is about what Miles calls energy management, and it goes far beyond productivity hacks. He argues that people don't burn out because they're doing too much. They burn out because they're doing too little of what truly energizes them. He describes how to track energy inflows and energy drains. What activities make you lose track of time? What interactions leave you drained, even after short conversations? The goal isn't to eliminate all stress, it's to design your life around energy alignment, not time management, because you can't live a passionate life if your days are filled with things that quietly deplete you. Another major principle is about relationships. Miles says, you are the average of the 5 people you allow most into your mind. But he takes it further. It's not just who you spend time with, it's who you listen to. He talks about something called toxic normalization, when we normalize negativity, complacency, or mediocrity simply because everyone around us accepts it. Breaking free from that means curating your environment as carefully as your habits. He suggests performing a relationship audit. Identify which connections lift you toward your best self and which quietly pull you away from it. It's not ruthless, it's responsible. You can't live intentionally if you're constantly absorbing other people's apathy. By the middle of the book, Miles shifts into how we sustain momentum. That's where he introduces the rule of 3 C's: curiosity, courage, and consistency. Curiosity keeps you learning. Courage gets you moving. Consistency keeps you growing. He calls curiosity the antidote to stagnation. When you're curious, fear becomes data instead of danger. And courage, that's not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move anyway. Then consistency, that's where passion turns into mastery. Miles says, consistency is the multiplier of passion. Without it, the flame burns out. It's a rhythm, not a sprint. The later principles dig deeper into resilience. He shares a moment from his own life, losing his sense of identity after leaving the Navy, and how that pain forced him to ask, "Who am I when the uniform comes off?" He calls this the moment of impact, the point when life as you know it ends and your true self begins. Whether it's job loss, divorce, burnout, or illness, these moments either destroy us or define us, depending on how we frame them. He explains that purpose isn't found in avoiding pain, but in transforming it into meaning. And neuroscience supports this. When we reinterpret adversity as growth, the same brain regions that trigger stress also activate learning. Pain literally becomes the raw material for resilience. One of the most inspiring stories in the book comes from Admiral William McRaven, famous for his "Make Your Bed" speech. McRaven told Miles that discipline and small wins create stability when chaos hits. That ties into another key idea: micro wins build macro change. Instead of chasing huge transformations, Miles says, focus on daily progress. You don't need to rebuild your entire life in a week. You just need to win the next hour, because one aligned action compounds into momentum, and momentum becomes identity. This idea reframes motivation completely. It's not about feeling ready, it's about acting aligned. As the book nears its end, Miles emphasizes something most purpose books skip: service. He argues that true passion isn't self-centered, it's self-expanding. When you connect your purpose to something bigger than yourself, helping others grow, contributing to a cause, or simply showing up with empathy, you tap into a deeper kind of fulfillment. He calls it impact energy. It's what turns success into significance. Because a life built only around personal goals eventually feels hollow, but a life built around contribution feels limitless. The final principle is almost spiritual in tone: alignment. When your values, actions, and intentions line up, life feels lighter. You stop chasing meaning because you are living meaningfully. Miles says, passion struck isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more. That's why the book ends not with a checklist, but with a question. What does your best self look like? And what are you willing to do today to live that way? He reminds us that purpose is not discovered in a moment of inspiration. It's earned through a lifetime of intention. And the more you practice these principles, the more they become your default operating system. When you zoom out, the 12 principles aren't just ideas. They form a full cycle. Choose intentional living, define your identity, escape autopilot, manage your energy, curate your relationships. Practice the 3 C's, transform pain into meaning, build micro wins, lead with service, stay aligned with your values, sustain momentum, reignite daily purpose. Together they form what Miles calls the passion-struck loop, a system you can return to whenever you drift off course. Because everyone drifts. That's the point. You're not supposed to stay on fire every day. You're supposed to keep returning to what lights you up. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Purpose isn't something waiting to be found. It's something waiting to be lived. Every decision, every conversation, every habit is a chance to build a life that feels deliberate. Miles's message is simple but powerful. Don't wait to be passionate. Act passionately. Because passion doesn't come from what you do. It comes from how you do it. If you've ever felt stuck between who you are and who you could be, This book is a guide back to alignment. And maybe that's something we all need right now. So, what's one small action you could take today to live more intentionally? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little spark of purpose right now. Because the journey to a passion-struck life doesn't start tomorrow. It starts the moment you decide you're ready. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.